Thank you everyone for coming today. We're really excited to have you. I know this is one of 4 events this week that we're hosting about government and CIA, FBI. So if you've joined us previous events, great. If not, first time, that's awesome. So my name is Kelsey Nager. I am the Employer Experience Coordinator at the Career Development Center. So I work with employers to get them to career fairs, info sessions like these, and other events as well. So we're excited to have Wendy from the FBI joining us today. A few housekeeping items before we start. One, again, we'll be recording the session and posting it on our YouTube channel so that you or your friends could watch it later if you're still interested in looking at the FBI. So if you would not like your face potentially in the recording, please turn your camera off now. Additionally, there will be time for Q&A at the end, so go ahead and chat your questions in the chat box if they come up, or you can unmute yourself at the end and ask those to Wendy directly. Lastly, if you're looking for Compass, Passport, or Connect points, that's great. We'll be utilizing the Zoom attendance report and your registration information after this to award those. Please do give it a few days because since we are remote, it's a manual process. So please give that team some time to upload it. Lastly, I'll follow up with some information after this event, so look out for that. And without further ado, I'm going to kick it off to Wendy.
Thank you. So good, I guess it's afternoon, huh? Good afternoon. My name is Wendy Teasdale. I am a special agent with the FBI here in San Diego. A little bit about me. I have been an agent now for over 18 years. I started my career in the Los Angeles field office, working gangs and counterterrorism. And then I was lucky enough to get a transfer with my husband, who's also an agent. We came down to San Diego, which is where I was born and raised. So I was happy to be home. And I worked 10 years of counterintelligence. I did some intel work. And when this position opened up, I raised my hand for it. So I am now the official recruiter and applicant coordinator for San Diego. And I'll tell you, I tend to look at the faces on my screen. So it probably looks like I'm not actually looking at you, and it's a hard habit to break. I want to talk a little bit about student programs today. We have a couple of those that you may be interested in, but I also want to mention, let me get going on this. At the bottom of the screen, you see FBIjobs.gov. So that is the website that we maintain that has all of the information that pertains to any career that we offer, whether it's special agent, intel analyst, student programs, and that's really where you need to go to get all that information. I know USA Jobs will carry some of it. There's a lot of information on LinkedIn, but FBIjobs.gov is our website. And I believe it's April 19th, we are undergoing a major change to that. So we'll have some big changes, hopefully a friendlier website, but I wanted to point that out. Before I talk a little bit about student programs, I want to mention our mission. Our mission is short, but it's incredibly broad. It's to protect the American people and uphold the Constitution of the United States. So everything that we do, everything that drives us is with that mission in mind. And for me personally, 18 years, right? I've had some good days, I've had some bad days, and I have to say that that mission is what keeps you moving forward. So on a bad day, on a day where you're just like this, I'm tired, maybe I need a change of careers, you know, the mission is what keeps me going. I have kids, so I'm raising, you know, hopefully really good citizens, really good people to join our community. And I feel good working in a position that has such an important mission. A little bit about the FBI organization. So I think of it as like a bicameral organization. We have one director. That director is appointed by the President of the United States. Currently, we have Christopher Wray as our director. There are about 35,000 employees. 12,000 of those are special agents. So that's kind of where you see it split up. So half of the Bureau I think of as the investigative side, right? That's our law enforcement side. Those are our special agents, our intelligence analysts, our evidence technicians, our surveillance folks. Those are the folks that are helping drive those investigations that support that mission. And then the other side of the house is corporate or administrative. And those are all the folks, all of the positions that make our law enforcement side possible. Our budget analysts, our accountants, our lawyers, our human resources folks. So it's kind of split into two. And at headquarters, so our headquarters is back east, right? WFO, Washington Field Office. Washington, D.C. is where our headquarters are, as well as in West Virginia. And we have our financial folks now down in Huntsville, Alabama. But the field offices, there are 56 of them. They are where the investigations take place. And I'll show you a map shortly. So those 56 field offices serve a population. So if the population is really large, you'll then see resident agencies, or you can think of them as satellite offices, serving that population as well. So for example, in San Diego, we have a main office in Sorrento Valley. Then we have a North County office in Carlsbad. And when you have further out east in Imperial County, we have an office in El Centro. So those satellite offices help us serve that population. We also have 64 international offices. We call them legal attaches, and they are continuing to serve our mission abroad with the partnerships that we have established. Our annual budget, 2017, was $8.7 billion. So we're a massive organization, right? Just like in private industry, we're a huge corporation, if you will. Those are our field office locations. There are 56 of them, as I said. It includes Puerto Rico. Now, as you notice at the top of the map, we don't have any field offices, but those locations would be served by our resident agencies. That's all driven by population. Our field offices, while we can investigate any of our federal violations, that's what we do, they are often trending to what violations exist in that area of responsibility. So when you look at San Diego, we're on the border, so we may see human trafficking, public corruption as it's tied to border agencies. We have a port, so we have concerns there as well, whether again it's counterintelligence, human trafficking, counterterrorism. We have a large biotechnology presence as well as universities. So a lot of the work that we do in San Diego is driven by what exists in our area of responsibility. And that may vary from field office to field office. What do we investigate? So we investigate well over 300 federal violations, and I've listed some of them there, right? We have counterterrorism investigations, counterintelligence, cybercrime. So counterterrorism, counterintelligence, and cyber tend to be our top three. They may change and vary here and there from 1 to 2 to 3, depending on the intelligence we get, depending on the gaps that we need to address, depending on the priorities that are set at our national level, but you see those frequently in the top 3. Public corruption, civil rights, organized crime. And again, you'll see these violations investigated throughout our our field offices. Okay, I know Kelsey is I tend to talk quickly because I have a lot of information, especially when I get to these student programs. So at the end, I definitely want to take questions. You'll also see my email, and I highly, highly encourage you to reach out to me personally. If you have any questions that we don't cover today, if you have an interest in these student programs, if you plan on applying for any of them, please, please reach out to me, and you'll get that email at the end. So student programs, we have 2. We have our honors internship program and our collegiate hiring initiative. And there's a lot of words on this. The main difference between the two is the honors internship program is something you apply for knowing that at the end of the internship, you will be a continuing full-time student. The Collegiate Hiring Initiative is a program designed for folks who are about to graduate or who have graduated recently. So the Collegiate Hiring Initiative puts you into a full-time position. The honors internship is just that, it's an internship. So both of these programs accept applications typically August through October. We accept our applications through FBIJobs.gov. Now, you need to pay attention to that application period because sometimes we'll accept applications from August to September, sometimes August to October. It's all going to depend on the number of applications and the number of positions that we're going to offer. So keep an eye on that, and they will often release that information right as they're opening up applications. Honors internship, you're going to apply from August to October for an internship the following summer. So for example, this year, 2021, you'll apply fall of 2021 for an internship in summer of 2022. And the reason for that large gap is because we expect all of our folks, including our interns, to obtain and maintain a top secret security clearance while you're with us. And that means a really long background investigation. So that's why applications come in in fall for positions in summer. And that's true for both programs. So you have to be a full-time college student, undergrad or graduate, and you have to have a GPA of 3.0 or higher. And then again, for that internship, so fall 2021, you apply, internship in summer of 2022, you still have to be a student, full-time student, fall of 2022. So that's the catch there. Internships begin in June and they end in August. They're 10 weeks. You'll work 40 hours a week that summer. And then if you are rated as successful and invited to come back to continue being an intern the following summer, if you're eligible, you will continue to come in 16 hours per month throughout the school year. And that's a requirement of that top secret security clearance. You have to continue to come in our space and work in our space to maintain that clearance. One of the questions that comes up frequently is, hey, what if I get an internship in Los Angeles in the summer, but I go to school in San Diego? How do I make that work? How do I make those 16 hours work? And we will work with you. So if you get placed in a summer internship outside of the location where you go to school, we will shift your internship during the school year back to the field office where you are going to school at, if that makes sense. So if you're a student in San Diego, throughout the year, you're going to hit those 16 hours in San Diego. And then in the summer, you'll return to your home office for that internship. You'll work side by side with FBI employees. Over the last several years, we've had interns who assisted us with our social media presence, who assisted us with public affairs events. They had a communications degree that they were working on, so that was a really good fit for them. We've had folks that came in with a political science degree, but they were Mandarin speakers. And so we put them into our counterintelligence program so they could assist us with counterintelligence needs that we had because we get information right in different languages as well. So a lot of folks will say, what will I be doing in the FBI? Well, you'll be doing what we need you to do, but we try very, very hard to marry up your field of study, your interests, your skill set with what we need. Collegiate Hiring Initiative. So like I said, this is geared towards folks who are about to graduate or who have graduated in the last 2 years. So for 2021, if you're going to graduate by June of 2022, you're going to put in for that Collegiate Hiring Initiative. And if you've graduated within the last 24 months, you're also eligible. My veterans, if you have veterans preference eligibility, you can put in if you've graduated in the last 72 months. So you're going to put in for these positions. It's a full-time paid employment, entry-level position typically, because most of our folks applying don't have a lot of professional work experience. So you're going to be placed into an entry-level position. No work experience is required. And I'm going to talk about your resume because while no work experience is required, there are some things that we're looking for on your resume, and I'll talk about that. Again, 3.0 GPA or higher. And you can see the bullet points below. It's good for folks who've graduated with an undergraduate degree or about to, or a graduate degree as well. And again, applications, FBIjobs.gov, typically accepted August to October, FBIjobs.gov. Okay, before I go on to insights. We get, as you can imagine, an awful lot of applications for these programs. We get way more applications than spots we have available. So I want to address a couple of things. The honors internship is looked at by the Bureau to say, hey, how can we meet our future needs? You know, we determined that in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, we're going to need X number of folks working in these entry-level positions in San Diego, in Los Angeles, in all of those field offices. So San Diego may accept 6 interns one summer. They may accept 12 the next summer. They may accept 1. And that's because we've determined the need for entry-level folks in the next 1 to 2 to 3 years as such. So, and that happens throughout all field offices. Collegiate Hiring Initiative, same thing. So we're saying, hey, we need this many entry-level positions. We accept more applications for Collegiate Hiring Initiative and we put more people in positions with that Collegiate Hiring Initiative just because we have more entry-level positions available than we do needs for interns. And I'm going to talk about how you actually apply and the effort it takes. But I always tell folks, look, this is probably a pretty simple application process as compared to other agencies. There's not a lot of effort required to put in for these positions. Put in for them the next year, put in for them as long as you are eligible for them. Because I've only been a recruiter now for a couple of years, but I've talked to folks who this year have actually been offered positions with our Collegiate Hiring Initiative who were not successful as interns. So I don't want you, if you put in for these positions, for these programs, and you are either not interviewed, not contacted, interviewed and not hired, I don't want you to feel like it's not worth pursuing, because I am seeing folks year to year getting picked up who were rejected the year before, and it's often just a numbers game. So I wanted to say that before I move on. Okay, application insights. This FBIjobs.gov, when you apply for these positions, it's kind of one and done. You're going to submit that application and you have to have everything lined up. All of your required documents need to be put in, your resume needs to be in the correct format. They're not going to give you a second chance. And I see that a lot. I'll see folks say, oh, I went ahead and submitted and I'm going to get this form in later. It's really difficult to do that once you put in for these programs. It's kind of it's one shot, right? So make sure everything's lined up. You got your ducks in a row before you submit your application. We want to see a federal resume format. If you're not familiar with that, you can email me and I'll send you what we're looking for, or you can simply do a Google search on federal resume. And if you're attending info sessions on government positions, they should be mentioning this as well. It's very unique. So private industry wants that one-page document, right? Just a snapshot of who you are and what you bring to the table. We want a multi-page document, and it's a snapshot of you, not just the skill set that you think we want, but you. So you're going to have your position. Let's say you worked part-time as a cashier for Target. So say Target Corporation, cashier, part-time, 15 hours a week. Your timeline needs to be in the month and the year. So it would be January of 2019 to June of 2020. That's how the headline should be for all of your positions. You don't want any gaps in your resume. Clearly, you guys are a little bit on the younger side, right? So for someone like me, I don't want to have 1 to 2 year gaps where it looks like I wasn't doing anything, or I'm not being transparent as to what I was doing. So you want to go back to your 18th birthday. So you're going to include your education, your work experience, whether it's part-time or full-time. You're going to include community service or volunteer, any positions you've held with nonprofits, things like that. You can also include if you studied abroad. I want you to include if you speak another language, whether that's conversationally or fluently. All of that needs to go on. It can be multiple pages. We have something called core competencies. Again, I can send those to you, or you can get on FBIjobs.gov and look that up. These core competencies are what we are looking for in your resume. Communication, collaboration, leadership, flexibility, and adaptability. I think there are about 8 of them. And this is what everyone's looking for. But what I say to folks is, look, we will give you the skills that you need in a particular position. If we pick you up and we make you an evidence technician, we're going to teach you how to be an evidence technician. What we want to know from your resume is, are you flexible and adaptable? Can we put you in a team environment and you can succeed? Can you communicate well? Because you're going to be writing documentation, sending emails. Communication is key in federal law enforcement. Can you collaborate, right? Can you work with your case agents? Can you work with your evidence response folks? Can you work with your supervisor? Collaboration is important. So your resume should filter all of your experiences through these core competencies. And again, you must upload all those required documents. Unofficial transcripts are accepted. They're going to ask for transcripts, and I know that official transcripts are harder to get. Unofficial transcripts are absolutely accepted. And then I want to talk a little bit about the interview. So you're going to put in your application, FBIjobs.gov. If you hear from us that we want to interview you, you need to prepare for what's called a situational interview. Sometimes people call it a STAR method of interviewing. And I think STAR is situation, task, action, result. We call them situation, action, outcome. So you're going to get questions thrown at you like, hey, tell us about a time when you had to step into a leadership position unexpectedly. What was that situation? What happened? And what did you learn? So there are always 3 parts to these questions, and they want to know specific situations from your life. We don't want to know, well, you know what? I've always been a cashier at Target. I have good communication skills in general. That's not the situation we're looking for. We're looking for, I'm a cashier at Target. I've worked there for several years. My role is to build rapport and communicate with folks as they come through my line. So you're kind of painting that picture. And one day on this particular Tuesday, I had a really irate, angry customer, right? So this is your situation that you're pointing to. And then you're going to lay out, how did you establish rapport? How did you negotiate with them? How did you de-escalate the situation? Whatever, right? You're stepping into a position of leadership in that moment and taking control of the situation. And at the end, your result. Customer was happy. Whatever your result is, it doesn't really matter. I want you to know that when we ask you these questions as part of a student program, you're pulling from your whole life experiences. It can be when you were traveling. It can be when you were working. It can be during the course of your education, doing community service, things like that. I find that a lot of my folks get very caught up in, what can I tell the Bureau to impress upon them that I would be a really good Bureau employee? And the reality is you just have to sell you, and you should be able to sell you, right? Because you know all of your experiences. So that interview is situational, situation, action, outcome, and you can pull from any of your experiences when you answer those questions. I know I'm talking fast, but I want to make sure I get all my words in. Oh, we're good. Some of the questions I get and some tips I want to share. Where will I be assigned? So when you go to apply for these programs, let's use Honors Internship as an example, they will ask you to list 6 locations that you're willing to go to. When your application is released to the FBI as a whole, we will then be able, and say in San Diego, to look and say, okay, who's willing to come to San Diego? Who's willing to go to Los Angeles? And that's the pool of folks that we pull from. You can increase your chances if you're willing to go to headquarters or to a larger field office. Because like I said, San Diego may, on any given year, take 5 interns. Los Angeles may take 25. So if you are able to list bigger offices or busier offices or locations such as headquarters, it will benefit you to do that. I know it's hard. I know there's a financial component, right? You got to have a couch to crash on, or you got to have money to pay rent for these locations. But just so you know, you will improve your chances if you can put down busier and bigger locations. Required forms, both programs require a transcript and a resume, that federal resume format. Your honors internship also requires a term understanding that you will sign as in terms of the protocol and the details behind that internship. And you will have to turn in a school certification. So warning to you, I've seen folks at the last minute try to get their application in, and that school certification is the hardest thing because it has to be signed or stamped by a registrar. So keep that in mind. If you do decide to put in for the program, you probably need to get started in time to get your registrar to fill that out. What makes you more competitive than another applicant? That's another question I get. So our hiring process is very, very objective, right? We want everyone to have the same opportunity as the person before them and the person after them. So we are not necessarily comparing you to someone else. When you walk out of your interview or your resume is looked at, they are looking at it purely, as your interview and your resume. We're not saying, well, let's wait and see who we get next. What makes you more competitive? Second languages absolutely help. Even if you're just conversational, because think about it, if you are conversational, and let's just say Spanish, right? That gives you a whole world that opens up. You can communicate, you can collaborate, you're navigating different cultures. Maybe you're navigating a little clumsily if you're not a native speaker, but you are still able to do that. Sell what's on your resume. I keep using the Target cashier, but I find that a lot of my folks are almost apologetic when they say, I only work part-time in customer service. And I'll tell you right now, I worked part-time at Sears selling tools. I worked part-time at Lady Foot Locker selling shoes. and I worked part-time at Champ Sports selling sports equipment. And those jobs, they didn't pay well, but they really teach you how to, right, communicate, collaborate, navigate, build rapport, things like that. Those are phenomenal jobs, and you need to make sure you sell those on your resume. We are always looking for STEM backgrounds. So even if you aren't getting a degree in STEM, maybe you are involved in community service or a volunteer position that addresses the STEM industry. Really, again, there's nothing that makes you more competitive than another applicant, but take a hard look at what you're putting on your resume and saying, you know, how can I spin this? Don't just say cashier at Target. You're going to have at least 5 to 6 bullet points that lay out what you do in that position. The other question I get a lot of is, do the Collegiate Hiring Initiative positions count towards the 2-year professional work experience needed for special agent? And I have a slide on that. A lot of my folks want to be special agents in the long run. That's their big question. And they're saying, hey, if I get my foot in the door with Collegiate Hiring Initiative, does that put me at an advantage? And the answer is maybe. We hire special agents just like we hire anything else. And so there's no real advantage to coming externally or internally into the special agent position. But I do want to let you know that not every single one of our positions counts as professional work experience towards that special agent requirement. So there are entry-level positions we have that you may be offered and you may take that will count towards professional work experience as a special agent. And there are positions that will not. So please keep that in mind, and we can talk separately. If you decide to move forward, we can talk about how that would look for you as you start your career with us. I just want to go over a little bit about what kinds of careers we have. If you look at a field office, it's almost like a little miniature city. We have an automotive section, right? We have mechanics that service our vehicles. They service our planes if we have them. They service boats if we have those as well. We have an entire business operations unit at every field office that makes sure that we have our human resources, that our budget is set. Facilities and logistics management, right? When you've got several thousand employees under one roof and all of the requirements that go into managing a federal government agency that would include, you know, covert operations, overt operations. There's a lot that goes into managing all of that, and a lot of positions that are unique, and you'll find those as well. Finance and accounting. So we have accountants that work on sort of our corporate side of the house, your standard accountant, and then we have accountants that work on our investigative side of the house, and those are our forensic accountants, and they actually work side by side with agents and intel analysts to help drive those investigations forward. We have intelligence analysts as well, international operations, so folks that have gotten through their probationary period. We have legal attachés, and we require personnel there as well, whether they're special agents or operational support technicians or intelligence analysts. We have those international offices staffed as well. Of course, internships, and then we have our IT as well. Professional staff careers, continuing language. So we have linguists. For every investigation that we run, we may have a language need. I actually came on as a German speaker. I speak German. As impractical as it sounds, it actually got me my job here with the Bureau, because we were used to look more closely at the needs of our foreign languages. So I came in as a German language speaker. We have language analysts. So if I'm working a case that needs to be translated from Russian or Mandarin or just a dialect from anywhere, we have to tap into our language analysts. And so we have them staffed in our field offices as well as nationally. Legal folks, we've got our in-house counsel, if you will, at our field offices, as well as our legal folks that sit back at headquarters. We have police officers back at headquarters. And then we have a whole laboratory. So back at Quantico in that area, we have our own laboratory division, and they are staffed by our science and engineering folks as well. And then we have surveillance teams. A lot of folks ask me about that as well. There are 2 surveillance teams. We have special agents that run one of those teams. They're the surveillance teams that help support the criminal investigations. And then our professional staff folks, our non-agents, also can take part as a surveillance team, and they are in support of our national security investigations as well. Special agent. just briefly, the requirements to be a special agent, you have to be between 23 and 37. So you cannot have turned 37 before you enter our academy. And the reason for that is we are mandated to retire at age 57. So Congress decided, hey, after 57, we don't want special agents running around with weapons, doing investigations. That's our mandated retirement age, which means we have to enter the academy before we turn 37 so we can do 20 years of full-time investigations to qualify for our retirement. You have to have 2 years of professional work experience to be an agent, or 1 year if you have a master's degree or other graduate degree. And professional work experience is simply full-time, salaried, requires a college degree. So you'll see folks like me who were teachers, you'll find nurses, journalists, we have doctors, we have veterinarians, we have human resource managers, really any professional work position is eligible to become a special agent. I have to have a driver's license. You must be willing to relocate in the United States. So that's a little bit unique in that the special agent position and the intelligence positions are the only two positions where you're really saying, I want to come on board and I'm willing to go anywhere to do that career. So when you come out of the academy, you are assigned to a location. Whereas any of our other programs, you were told pretty early on in the process, hey, you're interviewing for this position in this field office. So you're well aware of where you're going. And you have to pass a physical fitness test. A lot of folks think that there's a physical fitness test for our other positions. That's not the case, only special agent. And the age requirement is only for special agents as well. Oh, look, I blew through that. That's my email that I told you about. I would like you to use it. If you have questions, I really do encourage you to reach out to me. I like having conversations about your resume. I like going over your resume. I like answering, all those little details that you can't quite get on our website. And I also encourage it because, again, we get an absolute ton of applications for these programs. And it does benefit when I can say, hey, I had a conversation with this person. They seem dialed in. They'd be great to have on board. Can you make sure you take a hard look at their resume? So there's no real benefit other than we're kind of setting you up, right, to get your foot in the door, make sure you're jumping through over those hurdles successfully because you know what is expected of you. What questions are there for me, Kelsey, if any, or if you guys want to unmute, I'm happy to answer questions.
Feel free to unmute students or maybe raise your hand so that we don't have people talking over each other. And then if you don't want to voice it yourself, you can message it in the chat and I will voice it to Wendy. Before we start with Q&A, Wendy, do you mind if I email out your email and if you could send me the values?
The core values, yes, the core
values, and then I can send that out to the students after.
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, Aya, go ahead. And please let me know if I said your name wrong.
You said it right.
Okay, perfect.
Well, thank you so much for the information. I really enjoy it. You said something about like accounting and finance. I am a current undergraduate student in finance and accounting major. But like when I said I wanted to apply to FBI as like a career, they always told me they were not being accepted because like you are a business major. So they always encourage me to have a criminal justice major or like political science. Is that the case, or like it doesn't actually matter what you majoring at?
So that's a good question. I usually cover it, but I kind of blew through these. So let's talk a little bit about the Collegiate Hiring Initiative because there are typically 3 tracks, and I should have had that on my slide. When you go to apply for the Collegiate Hiring Initiative specifically, you are going to either pick finance track, technical track, or general. My finance folks are, of course, folks that have, if not a finance major or accounting major, they have some hours with those classes so that they're qualified to sort of focus in that area. My technical folks are going to be, my engineering degrees, my IT people, computer science, things like that. Everyone else is going to go into that general track. And there's actually probably more positions available for general folks. So in terms of Collegiate Hiring Initiative, it does not matter what your degree is in at all. Now, if you're looking at a position specifically, say like forensic accounting or accountant, they're going to look for an accounting degree or a certain number of accounting hours, as well as you know, ideally looking for CPAs. So the answer to your question is maybe. If you look at the special agent position, I have a degree in German literature. So, I mean, in reality, it doesn't really matter what your degree is in. Criminal justice is a pretty general degree as well. And so while it may check the box, you're still going to have to make sure that you're applying for a position that is more general.
Great, thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Blaine, go ahead.
Do you know, ma'am, the GS level of the intern pay? And if there is a, and then as well as is there a GS cap on analysts?
So GS, I believe you're coming in as a 5. So it's not a lucrative position, right? It's more what the experience that you get. And then the goal of the honors internship is that if you successfully complete that summer and you're invited back, you're going to continue being an intern until you graduate. And then we're going to offer you one of these positions anyways. So the GS 5 is what you'll come in as an intern. The position that you would be offered upon graduation will be higher and dependent on the position that you're offered. Typically our GS 7, potentially 9 positions are what are offered through Collegiate Hiring Initiative. And that's again, dependent on, you know, maybe you're coming out with some professional work experience, maybe you've got a military background, maybe you have a graduate degree. And I believe our Intel analysts cap out at a 13, just like special agents. And of course you can promote beyond that, but the Intel analysts, I believe it's GS 13.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So a question came in the chat first, and then we'll go to Aiden. For graduate degrees, are there any specific degrees that you put at an advantage or disadvantage for the Collegiate Hiring Initiative?
Again, it's tough because it's based on what positions we are trying to fill. So if we are in a year where we are looking for a lot of data analysts and a lot of computer scientists, obviously a graduate degree with a cyber background or computer science background is going to be beneficial. If we have a lot of folks where we want to fill finance positions, then you want that finance or accounting degree or a graduate level of study as well. So, you know, I feel like I'm coming across as less transparent, but the reality is that the numbers and the needs are dictated by our needs. And so that answer varies year to year, really.
Thank you, Wendy. Aiden, go ahead.
Hi, once again, thank you for having this session today. I was wondering how easy it is to kind of transfer positions inside the FBI. So say 5 years down the line and I've got a job in there, but I decide that I don't like being in the finance field for the FBI. What's sort of the track, and like, there's a lot of jobs where if you get one position, they don't like you switching over to a different position. And I'm just sort of wondering what the ease is for the FBI.
Yeah, that's a good question. So we have, I will tell you that the vast majority of our Collegiate Hiring Initiative folks in the field offices are offered what's called an operational support technician position. And they are, if you will, the secretary that manages our investigative squads. That tends to be a springboard to a squad operations specialist position. And those folks are mini analysts, if you will. So there are some positions that lead to other positions when you're looking at things such as special agent or intelligence analyst or other maybe headquarters positions. You are going to be putting in an application through FBIjobs.gov. Often our positions are only accepted for internal folks, right? So while it may not be a direct pipeline, we really are encouraging our folks to put in internally for these positions as well. So it's hard to point to how folks navigate positions, because for everybody in the Bureau, other than that OST, operational support technician path into that mini analyst position, if you will, you'll see folks taking all different kinds of directions. And because it's the government, you know, there are weird intricacies where they will say, okay, you are capped out at a GS 11. So if you're going to put in for a position, you can only put in for certain positions that marry up to either your specialized skills or the GS level that you're at. And so it is a little bit unique, and trying to navigate that is a little bit confusing at first. So I know I kind of didn't answer your question, but hopefully that gave you some insight into it.
No, it did. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, another question came in through the chat. If we have no paid work experience, does volunteer work before age 18 still count?
So I would say, you know, when you're 37, no, but when you're in college and you're close to the age of 18 or before, I would absolutely include it, especially things like, you know, often we overlook sports, you know, being a member of a sports team or being a captain of a sports team, that shows huge responsibility, leadership, all of that. So I would absolutely include it. I mean, we get a lot of, you know, when you're 19 or 20 years old and you're putting in for these things, your resume is going to be a little bit lean, and that's okay. And we know that, which is why we're offering these particular student programs. So, you know, there's no harm in putting all of that on there, even if it's high school or just after high school experience.
Thanks, Wendy. Mm-hmm. Aiden, did you have another question, or do you still have your hand up from before?
Sorry, that was from before. I'll do it
That's
now.
Okay. No problem. We have about 2 more minutes left. I want to make sure that you all get your questions asked. Wendy is a huge knowledge about the FBI and is pretty transparent. So please feel free to ask her questions. Okay,
yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's okay. Another one came in. Would it be beneficial to have prior law enforcement experience before applying for any position in the FBI?
So I get that question a lot, like what degree should I get? Should I become a police officer? Should I go in the military? And of course I don't entirely want to answer that, because it's completely your decision, because you will see folks with no law enforcement experience in a position that you want, and you'll see folks with law enforcement experience in that position. So what I always recommend is life experience. Living life is most important, right? Because everything that you do, whether you're in IT or law enforcement or in customer service, those are all giving you experiences that you can speak to as you go through our process. Do you, for certain positions like special agent, get a bonus point for a critical skill such as engineering, law degree, law enforcement? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we do consider those critical skills, but just because you don't have them doesn't mean you won't make your way through the pipeline with everyone else.
Thanks, Wendy.
You're welcome.
So to clarify a question that came to me in the chat, and I'm sure others may have, the survey that I just sent, that is for us to get feedback about this event. We'd love for you to fill that out. We will be using the Zoom attendance for points though. So you don't need to fill out the survey for points, but we'd love to hear your feedback so we can improve future events. This one is USD related. Okay. All right, I want to be mindful of time, so I want to thank you all for coming today. I will put in the chat box the registration link for the CIA office hours tomorrow, if that's something that you would also like to pursue. And then I'll also be following up from this session with Wendy's email address and the core values of the FBI, so that when you're building your resume, you can look at those as well. But thank you all for coming, and we're really glad that you were able to join us today. And thank you, Wendy.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.